Hi, my name is Ceolito Rodriguez. Welcome one more time to our CompTIA IT Fundamentals Plus certification series. On this occasion, we are going to be talking about using peripheral devices. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to use plug and play to install devices and understand the use of device drivers. You should be able to describe different display technologies and install and configure a PC display. Install and configure multimedia devices such as sound cards, speakers, microphones, and webcams. Describe the features and capabilities of different types of printer and their associated interfaces, and install and configure printers and scanners. Should be printers. That's actually typo there. All right. So installing and uninstalling peripherals, it's a very common task, especially someone who works on an entry-level IT position. This is one of the things that you will be doing. Now, plug and play installation basically means that Windows locates and install a device driver automatically on connection. That's the whole idea. However, sometimes even though Windows will detect that a new device has been connected, Windows will be unable to actually install it because it doesn't have the device drivers. And this was true in older operating systems. In Windows 10, it's very good at that. I mean, there are many device drivers. I have yet to connect anything that Windows 10 will not automatically detect it and install it and configure it. And because Windows 10 is constantly being updated, this is even more so. Hot swappable devices do not require a system restart to connect or disconnect. So in the old days, almost any time that you connect or install something, most of the time it required a reboot. But with modern operating systems, especially Windows 10, so a lot of stuff, you don't have to do that. Now, obviously, if you open a computer and you install a component inside the computer, most of the time, yes, you have to power off the computer. But when we're talking about peripheral devices like this, like printers, cameras, and scanners, stuff like that, we're mainly talking about USB devices. And in case of the USB devices, then you don't basically have to do much. And as I said, so if Windows does not have the device drivers, then you need to do a manual driver installation. And basically, you need to locate, the setup program from the vendor's website and then run it. So one question that you may get is, which Windows interface is used for advanced management and troubleshooting of devices? And again, so in Windows, it's called device management. We're going to see that as we move along. So device manager, it's what is used to update drivers and obtain more advanced troubleshooting information with those devices. The devices and printers. So once let's say you buy a printer, open it up, connect it to a computer. Sometimes there's this post-installation configuration that you have to do to work the way you want it, right? There's some stuff that needs to be configured. So we're gonna go now to devices and printers, and then we're gonna go to settings just to just take a look at this. And so remember that in Windows 10, the easiest way to access anything is just basically search for it, okay? So if I just start typing device, automatically a whole bunch of things come up, and then the device manager comes in if you to manage devices. If what you want to install is a printer, then you better off going to the printers and cameras. But anyway, so if we go to device manager, let's take a look at this. So device manager, it's a good place to come in every time that you install anything, just to make sure that it is working properly. If you don't see any red X or anything, believe me, if something is wrong, you will notice that. But like in this case, you see that little arrow over there basically means that the device has been disabled. And this is just a virtual adapter that I disabled, so I know what that is. But anyway, so that's an indication over there. Also, look at this thing. So this device, which is a SAS controller, for which I do not have the driver, so I don't use that feature on my PC. So you just left it like that. So basically, that means that, that's not working either. But if you look at anything else, if you want to see, you'll be able to see this thing over here. And again, so device manager is a huge component. We're going to be talking about device managers as we move along. In the same token, so if a device is not working, or let's say, for example, that you remove a physical device, whatever that is, if you upgrade your sound card, then you remove one, or you remove a printer, or whatever that might be, and you don't want it anymore, it's not a good idea to leave the device driver. So when you physically remove something from a computer, let's say that you upgrade it for something else, if there is some lingering piece of software, it's a good idea to remove those things. So again, device manager, completely uninstall the driver, check device properties, scan for undetected devices. So how do I do this? So again, if we go to device manager, let's take a look at a couple of things that, so let's say that I have removed that device and I don't want to see it over there. I can right click on this, and there's a number of things. I could basically click on update the driver, and if I have downloaded the driver from the manufacturer, that means that I have it somewhere on my computer. I can click on, and then specify the location where I downloaded that. In this case, I didn't do that, so I can, I don't have it, right? Or you can say let me pick from a list available. So here, the computer will scan automatically within that folder, the entire folder, whatever. So if you have a folder, if you put it inside there, it will, or if you know specifically what it is, then you can choose and do that over there. But so I don't have that. The other choice is that you could actually go up to the internet, and so I'm going to say search automatically. And what it's going to do, so Microsoft has a repository, as I said, for drivers for Windows. And basically, it's going to check to see if there is a driver or an updated driver for this SAS controller on the Microsoft website. So unfortunately, it says that it was unable to install the SAS controller because it could not find drivers for that device. So whatever that component is basically means that there's no device drivers for that in Windows. And if I want to get that working, then I would have to go to the manufacturer. This is a Dell computer, so I'll go to Dell, look at that models, and then I can take a look at that, right? But again, so it doesn't matter because I don't want to do that. But so if I right click again, so I could disable the device, okay? And so if it's disabled, that's what it is. So it won't work because it's disabled. And you will notice that it's disabled because of that little arrow pointing down there. Again, if I had disabled a device, then I can enable it back. So I could uninstall the device, and then so if I click on install, it's uninstalled. The only thing with this, that remember that plug and play functionality. So as soon as I reboot the computer, this controller will be auto-detected and the driver will be installed again. Or if I am troubleshooting something here, I could, refresh it, right? So I can say scan for hardware for changes. So without having to reboot the computer, I could actually click on this, and then it will, detect that controller again. Okay. So again, if you right-click on a device driver, you can update the driver, you could disable it, you could uninstall it, you could scan for hardware changes, or you could click on the properties of it. And there's a couple of things in here in the general. So you'll see something like the status of the driver, the device, the type, the manufacturer, and the fact that it's unknown, then that's why you won't see much there. You can take a look at the drivers and look at, if you have a driver, obviously there's nothing for this. So let's actually take a look at something that is actually working so that we get some meaningful information. So here's my webcam. Let's take a look at this. Let's go to properties. And so again, it's going to tell me, this is an HD Pro webcam C920. So that's the model, and is an imaging device. And the manufacturer is Logitech. So that's who made my webcam. If I go to drivers, then again, the driver provider. So if I want drivers from the manufacturer, I need to go to logitech.com. The driver date is most likely when, when this is a relatively new, but it's from 2018 already. That's the driver version. So I can take a look at that to see if there is a new driver. I can go to more details about the driver. And again, I could go to update. And then this will go to the website and try to find a device for me. And again, the same thing, you could also disable and uninstall that device from there. If you go to the details, basically the same thing. This is the model. And then if you go to event, this is kind of like little things of the stuff that I've done, at that time, device install requested, blah, blah, blah. So this is kind of like it keeps a log of some of the things that are done to this device. All right. So again, device management, extremely important piece that we're going to be using a lot. When it comes to IP-based peripherals and web configuration, so your home router, your webcams, there are a lot of IoT devices, or, Internet of Things, or networking devices that printers, that they are configured through a web page. So basically, when you buy it, you'll have an IP address. So you open your web browser, type that IP address, and most likely there's going to be some login information, whether it's a username and password or at least one of them. And then you can configure stuff, some basic stuff there. So we will take a look at this later in the networking piece and networking and security piece. So we're going to be looking at how to configure some of these things over here. Question: what do you need to know to connect to a device that is configured over the network? Typically, you need an IP address, right? The Internet Protocol IP address, which is how you can access the management page. And as I said, some devices may use the name of the page instead of the IP address. Actually, it could be a name, something like printer setup or Verizon.printers.net, whatever. Right? You're also likely to be prompted for username and passwords I just mentioned. When it comes to display devices, your monitor, right? Flat screen displays are the ones used nowadays. They basically have replaced the analog cathode ray tube or CRT monitors, the old ones. I'm pretty sure you remember the TVs also. They use liquid crystal display, LCD, or TFT, the thin film transistor. Those are the technologies that you find on this new flat display monitors. Digital signal drives color value of each pixel, And some of the common vendors are ViewSonic, Liyama, Sony, Panasonic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them are touch screen, which basically means that you can, just like a tablet that you run everything with your finger, especially if you have um, one of those monitors that are touch screen, or the tablets, that kind of stuff. All right. Digital projectors, very important in an enterprise. We use these a lot on almost all conference rooms, have one of these. And obviously they're used for presentation, for meetings, for training. Basically, you just display an image on an external surface or screen. So very useful in an enterprise. They use the same graphics interfaces as the monitors. So basically meaning that, whatever you would connect the monitor, you would connect one of these devices, and then whatever is being projected on your PC will be projected on the screen, on the wall, whatever that may be that you're presenting. Display settings. Now, when we can configure a number of things when it comes to so actually, let's take a look at this, because actually this is more to change the computer, background colors and stuff like that. But the settings would actually be here. So if let's take a look at let's see. So if you right click and on the desktop, in any area of the desktop, and then you go to display settings, which is right here, you're going to come to this window. And in my case, I have two displays, two monitors, right? So indicate as 1 and 2. If I want to know which one is which, I can say identify. And then this is 1. So that means that the other monitor is 2. So this is my primary thing. You could also click on detach just if you don't know which one is which. A lot of little things you can do, the night colors and all that stuff. But what we're looking over here is, remember that we have talked about the display resolution. If you're working with certain displays, sometimes the display device that you're working may not support certain resolution. So this is a good place to come and take a look at if you are having trouble. The size of the text and the apps, this is 100, but if you want bigger letters and stuff like that, then again, you can play around with this also. The orientation is usually landscape. That's the way that you want it. If you mess around with these things, you can flip them out and that kind of stuff. But so most of the time, you don't, depending on the device, you may have a device that requires portrait to look better, but that's most of the time landscape works perfect. And another thing that we're going to talk in a little bit, but since I'm here already, is that because I have two monitors, there's a couple of things I can do. I can duplicate these settings. Basically means that anything that I do in one monitor is like a reflection, like a mirror. It would be exactly on the one side. I can duplicate that. That settings, if you have two monitors in a desktop, it's not really good, because then you get distracted. Everything is in two at the same time. But let's say, for example, in a company, it's very common to have a laptop connected to an external monitor. And actually, I have a laptop connected to two monitors with the display dongle. So what I do is that I flip the screen of the laptop. I close the laptop. There is some configurations in which you can close the laptop and Windows will keep on running. So you can configure that in control panel. We'll see that at some other point. But you can close that. And then I just look at my two monitors, the big monitors, because usually the laptop is very small. And what I do is that I extend the display. So one of the monitors, like in this case, this is my main monitor. I have everything over here. The other one is only an extension of this. And then what I do is that if there is a certain window that I want to be running on the other monitor, what I do is that I drag that window to the other side. So I drag it, and then basically I can see that. So I could be, let's say, that typically what I do is that I have my email program on one window, kind of like constantly looking at that all the time. And then, because I work on email a lot through the whole day, and then I use the other window to do all the things. And then you can, it's really good for multitasking. For me, it's actually very hard to work with one monitor. I've been using two for a really long time. Now, if I only wanted to show in one monitor, let's say that I disconnect one or I'm doing something, then I can also do that. So all that is configured through the display over here. Okay. Question, true or false? If you want to configure the DPI of a display device, you would do so via the personalization app, and that is false. That's per inch or DPI or scaling is configured via the display properties. Personalization is for configuring themes and the appearance of the desktop. And again, so if we go to, let me just close this, but if you right click on an empty spot on your desktop, here you have personalized, and that's what we're talking about. If you want to change the DPI, you go to display settings again, and this is where you do that right here. Okay. If I go to the personalize, for the personalization stuff, this is where I can change the background, the colors, the lock screen, and a whole bunch of things. Now, remember that many of these things will not be available to you unless you have a paid version of Windows, unless you activate Windows. All right. Next, installing and configuring dual monitors. So we'll already talked a little bit about that. You can either duplicate, extend, arrange the icons, and project, show only one screen. So that's kind of the thing that I was just talking about. So question, you are configuring dual monitors positioned side by side. You want to increase the amount of the screen space available. Which multiple displays option would you set, and extended display is the appropriate one. That's what most people use, but it's something that obviously depends on what is it that you want to do. You can play around with that. All right. Configuring a touch screen device. So if you have a tablet, if it is a Windows tablet, then Windows has the tablet PC setting thing where you can go and change the stuff. Obviously, if you have an Android or an iOS device, then you can configure that through the device will have the instruction. You can Google that up and just pull any of the kind of documentation. But so in Windows, you can go to what is called tablet mode, and then once you change this to tablet mode, so then a lot of things will happen, right? So, and here is it where you would configure that. You can say, use tablet mode, and then once you do that, then the computer, some of the functionality will change, and then you can use it that way. All right. You could also come to the notification area right here, and this is where you would turn tablet mode right there. So you can do it from this area also. Now, when it comes to multimedia ports and devices, we're talking about mainly audio or sound card. These are some of the connectors and that you would see mainly for speaker and microphone jacks. The audio in it's usually light blue. The microphone input it's pink. The audio out it's lime. It amplifies stereo speakers and headphones. The audio out it's a black one over there. It's the rear speakers. If you have one of those home entertainment systems and stuff. Audio out orange, that's for the subwoofer, and then you have also USB ports for headsets and that kind of stuff. so there's a lot of the stuff when it comes to audio that you need to configure. Sometimes you may have more than one audio device, you know, the stereo, the sound, that kind of stuff. And also if you have more than one audio device, then you need to choose which audio devices that you want to use, especially when you are recording. So if we look at, so let's take a look at this. So there's what is called a sound applet in control panel. Again, so let's just, in Windows 10, let's just type in sound, and then you're gonna go to audio settings. So from here, again, this is my microphone, and the reason why it's moving over there is because it's detecting that I'm speaking, and then this is the device that I'm using. So basically, what it means is that I'm using that. If I connect another audio device, then this is the place that I can come in and change that stuff. If you have a Windows, actually, if you go to, so let's go to control panel, the traditional control panel in Windows 10. And okay, so remember that I always change, you know, this is the default, and I always come to, I like this this way. So if you click on sound over here, this is what I was talking about. So here are the speakers. You may have different speakers or different sounds and stuff like that. And sometimes if your sound doesn't work, it's because maybe you're not choosing the right one. And so in my case, this is the one. So if I right click on this, I can say, you know, use this as the default or disable it and that kind of stuff. So if I want to switch to another one, if I have another one, I can set, you know, set this one as the default, right? So if you're having trouble with your sound, come around in here, play with this, because most likely that's where the problem would be. All right, that's about the sound card. So question, you need to plug a microphone into a computer to make a recording. How would you identify what jack to use? And again, for the microphone, it's usually it's the pink one. Okay, we talked about that. When it comes to webcams, very popular nowadays, especially, you know, the era of web conferencing, like what we're doing in class. Compact video recording, once very low quality. Now the modern webcams are usually HD quality and can be built in for the laptops or attached to a USB port. So you could, you know, yes, the laptops will come with built-in cams, a lot of them, most of the new ones. And you could also buy USB one and that you can connect to a desktop or even a laptop if yours doesn't work, you know, it's not as good as what you want. When it comes to printers, the different printer types, at an enterprise level, one of the most, the most popular, the most common is a laser printer, which uses a fuser unit and toner. Inkjet, have an inkjet cartridge and a print head, and those are mostly used at home. Grayscale or cyan, magenta, yellow. So these are basically the colors of the inkjet, sometimes referred to as CMYK color printer. And some of the most popular vendors, HP, Epson, Canon, Brother, and Samsung, and a whole bunch more. All right. So question, what are the 4 inks used to produce color prints? And again, it's the CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So everything else is basically, it's just some sort of a combination of one of these, okay? Question, what, if any, type of printer uses a fuser? And we just talked about that, a laser printer. The fuser basically bonds the toner to the surface of the paper using high heat pressure. They are of better quality than inkjet. And again, those are the kind of printers that you're going to find in a company most of the time. How do we install and configure a printer, right? Most printer nowadays are either USB or they could be Bluetooth wireless connection. Also, they could be wired. It could be in a company. Most likely, it's going to be a wired network printer. They also use that plug and play installation, especially if it's USB, and they are managed via device and printers or the setting devices. So, and again, in Windows 10, if you just click on printers and cameras, you come here, then this is the page where you're going to see all your printers. So here is my printer, the one that I have installed. And you can do a couple of things. You can, some printers come with an app in which you can configure a whole bunch of things in the app. So you can click on that. You can look at the printer queue right here, especially if something is not working and some of the documents get stuck and you need to delete and print again. If you go to, you can remove this printer, obviously. So let's say that you buy a new printer and you don't use this printer anymore. It's not in your computer. You either threw it away or gave it to a friend or a relative. Then again, it's important to remove those drivers from there. If you click on manage, there's a number of things that you can manage. So here's the name of the printer. Again, you can open the print queue from there also. You go to the printer app. You can print a test page. This is really important, especially when you're troubleshooting or installing a printer for the first time. So if you are able to print a test page, it basically means that the printer is connected properly and that the drivers are working. Because you may not be able to print from another application, Word, or a document is not printing. The document itself could be corrupted and it's causing the problem. But so this is like, again, if this works, then that means that the problem is with the document. Then try another document or another program, right? If you have an issue, you could run the troubleshooting, and this will find and detect a lot of problems. You can also go to the printer's properties right here and take a look at, a couple of things, such as, the name of the printer, the location, especially if it's a network printer. In a company, they would put some comments just to, if you work in a big company, just to have an idea of where the printer is located. You could share the printer with all the computers in the network. And again, this is done in most companies. Ports is not much that we look at this nowadays anyways. There's some other advanced features over here, especially when we're troubleshooting printers that we can take a look at. Color management, some printers, especially high-end printer, have a lot of management that you can configure the quality of the printer. You could also apply security. If this is a network printer, I can decide who can connect, who can print to this, and that kind of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the networking section of this class. And then some other device settings. And a lot of these things also depends on the printer that you have installed. When it comes to the printer properties, since we are on this page, one of the most important things here is being able to print on both sides if your printer supports that. Like in my case, this printer supports only doing that manually. So that means I would have to manually go and switch the paper. So it's not fun. But this is not an expensive printer. And then you can choose over here how you want to print on both sides. All right. And then you can go, to the hardware properties just to, take a look at some of this is the same thing as going through Device Manager, as we saw a little bit earlier. All right. And so again, here is some of the printer properties that I was just showing you. Question. You want to configure a printer to use both sides of the paper, or duplex, as it's called by default. So you have Alt-click the printer object. You just search for printer in Windows 10. Which commands should you select to proceed? And again, as I show you, you go to the printing preferences option. All right. Question, what basic command demonstrates that a printer is connected properly to a computer and that its driver is installed correctly for Windows? And again, print a test page. What type of wire interface is a printer most likely to use? And again, it's a USB. Now, this is for home printers, okay? Most printers are connected through an RJ45 or a network in a company. When it comes to, scanners are also popular. Most of the time nowadays, you buy what is called like an all-in-one. Like mine is a printer, copier, and scanner. It's an imaging device. It's similar to a photocopier, so I can make copies. They're flatbed form factor. Those are the most common, and sheet fed form factor also, where you have to enter the paper manually. And so scanning a document, scanners are connected using USB, and they're also plug and play. Again, so most of the time they are combined with the printers. Software applications control the scanning through an interface. The legacy printers use a technology called TWAIN or TWAIN. The newest scanners use what is called a Windows Image Acquisition technology. When you output a file, you could do either a JPG or TIFF, or you can print to scan to PDF. And they use a technology called OCR, or optical character recognition, to basically convert. Let's say that you have something that you want to, you have a piece of paper, you have a letter, and you want to convert that into a digital document. Then this is the technology that allows you to do that. Question: what function of a scanner would you use if you want to convert a letter that someone has mailed you into a computer editable document? And again, it's OCR, or optical character recognition. Digital cameras, another important peripheral device. Portable cameras using digital imaging technology, and flash memory cards. A lot of them comes with flash memory cards for storage. So basically, you have your pictures, take the storage out, put into the computer, and then you can use the computers, to back them up and to manage them, do whatever, basically to transfer the image to the PC. If the camera doesn't have a storage device, or let's say a memory flash card, or let's say that you have a computer that doesn't have a memory card reader, then you can connect the camera directly to the computer through the USB port. Okay, and some of them allow you to also use Wi-Fi to connect, the most modern ones. And again, that's how you transfer pictures from a camera to a computer. True or false? If your PC does not have a flash memory card reader, you should be able to connect the camera itself to the PC over USB to copy images off the card. And yes, that is true. That's what we just talked about. And with this, we conclude another video lecture about the ITF certification class. What did we cover here? So we use plug and play to install devices and understand the use of device drivers. We described different display technologies and install and configure a PC. Well, we didn't actually install the display, but we basically talked about the things that you need to physically install it. Install and configure multimedia devices such as sound cards and speakers. So basically, we went through the configuration of this, not through the physical installation. That would be tough to do in a virtual world, right? The way that we are communicating now. But anyway, so with this knowledge, you should be able to do that no problem. We also talked about the features and capabilities of different types of printer and their associated interfaces. And finally, we went through the steps on how to install and configure printers and a scanner. So thank you, and I will see you, basically we will communicate in the next video.